Hello and welcome to C Programming Intro to Computer Programming. This is the first lecture of several lectures where we'll be diving deep into C programming. What is computer programming? Computer programming is the ability to give instructions to a computer and have it compute a result or execute. Low-level instructions includes things like binary and assembly. Those are at the lowest level what a computer talks. Assembly is something that humans have made to make it easier to convert instructions to binary. High-level instructions also include things like assembly, C, Python, Java, and etc. Modern CPUs are things like Intel processors or AMD processors, and typically these things are associated with x86 or x64, and those things are typically related to the default size of the operating system or processor. So x86 being 32-bit, x64 being 64-bit. Another popular CPU is the ARM processor. So if you have a cell phone or a Raspberry Pi or things of that nature, it's more than likely using an ARM processor. So there's three basic logical constructs inside of programming. And these general concepts are sequences, selections, and loops. Being able to do those three things gives you the ability to create computer programs. And in the next part, we will dive a little bit deeper into each of these particular subcategories. So let's go ahead and just get some pseudocode examples. So this code in the center is not going to execute on anything. It's just an example of us trying to understand how code looks and what it can do. So let's start with sequence. A sequence is a set of instructions that can be carried out by a computer in a particular order. For example, using English words as a type of pseudocode, we can say something like the center code where x equals 2, y equals 10, and then we can output x plus 20. Now, in this output statement, let's imagine that we have some terminal, and it's going to output our result of x plus 20. So the above example here, we've kind of glossed over something that we will be discussing. This is considered a variable. The letter x is containing the value 2, and the letter y is containing the value 10. We can think of these as named units that contain a value. So stepping through this code with our little terminal on the side here, we can see that this arrow here is representing the current line that our computer is running on the right. So this is our terminal screen. If you've ever worked with a old school computer or something like a shell, or Windows will call it a CMD, this is what you'd normally be prompted with. So the first line, we're saying x equals 2. So now the current value of x, after this line executes and this arrow jumps down, x will contain the value 2. So going to the next slide, we see that y, we are assigning the value of 10 to the variable y. So currently x is equal to 2, and y doesn't have a value, but when this arrow moves down one, it will contain the value 10. So you can see that two things happened. The value of y is now 10 because this arrow stepped down to here. It turned to red meaning that our program terminated. We executed this line 2. We said output to our screen the result of x plus 20. Now recall that since it went in a sequence order, it first assigned the value 2 to x. So therefore, the output of x plus 20 is 2 plus 20. And that's why we see the value of 22 in our terminal here. So don't be worried if this is a little confusing. We're going to be reviewing a lot of this stuff and giving some context to it as well. So the next portion of programming, the next logical construct, is selections. Selection, you can think of as a fork in the road. It allows the code to branch between logical decisions given particular conditions. So think of it as walking down a street and coming to a fork. You can either go left or right. And depending on where you need to go, you will pick the correct direction to continue your path. Again, here's a block of pseudocode. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide. And we're going to go ahead and step through this program here. So the first thing that we're doing is we are going to assign the value 2 to x. Next, we're going to assign the value 10 to y. And then we have something that looks new to us here. You can think of it as us asking a question. We're asking the question if this statement here is true or if it is false. That what is this else block here. So we're asking the question if the value at y is greater than the value at x, we're going to output the value of y. Else, we would output the value of x. So, thinking about this, we assign the value 10 to y, and we assign the value 2 to x. So this condition, when executed, should be true, because 10 is greater than the value of 2. So stepping to the next line, we see that our program terminates and also executes our output, which is the output of y, and that value is 10. So the next construct in programming is loops. Loops allow for conditional iteration of a block of code. We have an example below, but what this basically means is that you have the ability to do the same task over and over until an evaluation of a condition returns false or true in some senses, depending on how you have the logical construct set up, just like our if statement. So stepping into this code, we assign the value 0 to x, and then we ask the question, and our next step, we say, continue to execute this block below while x is less than 3. Well, our current value of x is 0. So this is true. So we can continue down here. Okay, so we went ahead and outputted our value of x. That you can see that it was 0. Now this statement's a little tricky. Just like we were assigning the value of 0 up here, we have the ability to assign x a new value. So this is called reassignment. We're going to reassign the value x to itself plus an additional 1. So in this current context, it's going to evaluate from the right side first. So we will say 0, because that is a current value, as you can see displayed on the screen, plus 1 is equal to 1. So we're going to assign 1 to x. And then we pop back up because this is a looping structure. It comes back up to the top. So the next question we ask is we say, is 1, because the current value of x is 1, is it 1 less than 3? It is, so we continue our loop. We output the value 1, and then we do our reassignment. We say reassign the value of x to 1, because the current value of x is 1, plus 1, which is 2. So we come back up, we say while 2 is less than 3, we go ahead and output 2, and now we do our reassignment again. We say x is equal to 2 plus 1, which is 3. So now x will contain the value 3, and when we come up to reevaluate, this will terminate immediately after this condition because 3 is not less than 3. So this was just a general overview of some of the concepts that you'll be learning in the C programming language. C programming language is a very lightweight language. It was developed in the 1970s by Dennis Ritchie at Bell Labs. It's a compiled language, and it was designed to encourage cross-platform programming. So being able to move from operating system to operating system, or even better, different microarchitectures, so different processors. So C is a syntactically small and simple language. There's not very many things that the language provides to you. You have very basic constructs. It's super lightweight. Now, it's a very powerful language too, because you can do some pretty low-level operations on there. So the course will require a particular set of tools. This is a list of tools that I will be using, but if you're more familiar with other tools and you kind of know what you're doing and you just want to go through this course, feel free to use whatever you'd like. This is just a list that I think that beginners that are just starting out should probably have. So Windows 10 or Windows 8, probably those two are interchangeable. There's something called Windows Subsystem for Linux, and we're going to be using Debian, and tools on Debian will be GCC, GDB, and a few other things as well that we'll go over when we need them, and a text editor. Now, whatever text editor you're comfortable with, go ahead and use. I'm going to be using VS Code because for a beginner, it's generally one of the easiest things to set up. That being said, I enjoy programming very much, and I hope that you guys will enjoy this course as much as I enjoy programming. Thanks.